Good type is a team player, so combining type is a lot of fun. It's a real thrill, actually. So if you think about it, there are hundreds of thousands of typefaces that you can combine with hundreds of thousands of typefaces. So there's like a kajillion different pairing options out there. And you can think about it simply as two kinds of combinations. So you can pair type to be complementary. We'll look at this one first. So the most complementary pairing is a pairing of one, which sounds silly. But it's one of the hardest things to pull off in typography, to take one weight and build out like a type system from that one weight, pairing it with itself. This is a really great example from Bunch Design, based in London and Zagreb. They've managed to squeeze all this lovely macro and micro typography out of Albertus by Bertolt Volpe. Very cool. With art direction, you can also take a pairing of one and make it feel like more fonts, more type. That's just one typeface. If you guys, I don't know if you know Chris Do, he runs a show on YouTube called The Future. It's really good. And they've released a typographic or typography manual. And in this manual, he says that you really shouldn't try pairing any typeface with another typeface until you've mastered that one family, first of all. And so his advice, which is about Helvetica, but he says skip weights to pair. So good, yeah. So my personal mental model for pairing is more like a color wheel. And when we were talking about those complementary options, that's really choosing typefaces from within one color band. And if you choose typefaces that are close in color or style, then that works as well. Here's a good example. This is a slab heading with a serif body, and they feel like they're kind of coming from the same place. There's some other reasons for that, but they're bringing some harmony, I would say, and it speaks to complementary pairing without varying too far in terms of the style of the font. And then the polar opposite is to look at contrasting pairs. Don't know if you guys have seen this. It's a landing page from Adobe Marketing Cloud. And to me, it's like a master class in contrast, actually, in terms of art direction. It's pairing lettering with type. Really good copywriting, good data design. You should definitely check it out. But I think it speaks to the overall higher level concept of contrast. It's exciting to see this, right? It's exciting to see the colors change, and it's exciting to see all of this visual variation in one place. I think that's partially what makes it fun to look at, contrasting type pair, and fun to design with contrasting pairs. With contrasting pairs, you almost always have a lead typeface. It does the lion's share of the voice amplification, I would say. And then you have a secondary font, which is normally a little more practical partner. You can push it sometimes and put two sort of oddballs together, and that works as well. Sure, some of you know this guy, Sebastian Lester. You may know him from Instagram as the guy who makes us all feel terrible about any lettering we've ever tried. He's actually a very talented type designer as well, and he has a few families in his back pocket. And so Sebastian designed these maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe not that long ago, but they, even without typesetting with these in a realistic environment, you can tell they go together, right? There's some aspects here that are complementary and some that are contrasting. They're from different style categories, and it speaks to what I think in type design you might describe as ductus, which is the hand and the mind of the same designer producing multiple typefaces or voices. And that happens, I think, at the type designer level and at the foundry level. So if you're looking for good pairing options, a tip is to look at a foundry or a designer. And if you're using a typeface from a foundry or a designer and you can't find other pairs, ask them. They love helping with problems like that. Pairing is actually pretty helpful for brands, I think, these days as well. So 10 years ago, if you were selling yachts, then your brand guidelines might be 80% about the logo, right? Your primary brand guidelines. And then you'd have a little bit about content sort of tucked at the bottom. But today, if you're selling yachts, you're probably not selling boats. You're selling experiences, locations, right? The places that you go and the things that you'll do on your boat. And maybe the lifestyle, lots of pineapple and fizz. And so I think modern brands know that the relationship that they have with the customer isn't necessarily about the purchase of the boat, because they may not be ready to buy a boat yet. So most of that relationship is content-based. And that's what keeps the relationship going. And I see a lot more of this now in brand work, where there's some variability built into content, right? And so maybe by a campaign basis, or season by season, or edition by edition, building in some variation into the overall type palette to allow like a rotating cast of pairs to move in and out of it is actually quite a nice thing, I think, as a consumer, to see some variability and some change in voice, and also as a designer, to keep things fresh. I think it somewhat speaks to the modern aesthetic of social, which is really about collage. You see a lot of texture and a lot of type and a lot of imagery anytime we scroll down Instagram. In some ways, it's beginning to mirror like street-level commercial design from a bygone era. You may know Bethany Heck, really great designer. I think she works at Vox Media. And her style and understanding seems to be in the collage space. She's very good at putting visual and text together, or text and text together. And there appears to be no upper limit to how many typefaces she'll use in a pairing. And so even with all of that, the advice that she gives on pairing type is really good. And she says really choosing the fonts is overrated. It's about the hierarchy and the priority of the content itself that should drive those decisions, which is very wise advice, because you could literally spend all day doing type pairing. So type's a team player.